I'm Luke Summerhays, and I love Lotad. Lily pads are one of those things which are ubiquitous in storybooks, cartoons, and video games, which I don't feel like I encounter that often in real life. Sure, I've seen ponds, and sure, they sometimes have plant life floating on the top, but I've never seen that perfectly round green lily pad with a little frog or woodland critter floating on it and making their way across the water. In Japan, as well as being a cute garden feature, lily pads, and particularly the lotus flower which grows on them, are considered a sacred plant, with the lotus scripture and associated imagery being a big factor in Japanese Buddhism. Though, to be honest, Lotad seems to lean far more into the playful and childish kind of lily pad than the holy and significant lotus. Lotad is a water and grass type Pokemon, which embodies the idea of an animal riding a lily pad, inverting it so the lily pad grows on the animal's head. It has a slightly frog-like body and duck-like bill, though more on that later. Pokemon Ruby tells us, Lotad live in ponds and lakes, where they float on the surface. It grows weak if its broad leaf dies. On rare occasions, this Pokemon travels on land in search of water. Pokemon Sapphire told us, Lotad is said to have dwelled on land before. However, this Pokemon is thought to have returned to water because the leaf on its head grew large and heavy. It now lives by floating atop the water. And Pokemon Emerald tells us, this Pokemon lives in ponds with clean water. It is known to ferry small Pokemon across ponds by carrying them on the broad leaf on its head. The name Lotad combines lotus with lilypad, or perhaps with tadpole. The Japanese name Hasbo combines hasu, the Japanese name for a lotus, with boshi, meaning hat. Starting from level 14, Lotad can evolve into Lombre. Lombre is a taller, thinner, more humanoid Pokemon, still with the lily pad on its head and that duck bill. This makes it very much resemble a Kappa. When people talk Pokemon and Kappas, we often talk about Golduck, though this family are actually much closer in resemblance to the traditional mythological Japanese Kappa than Golduck ever was. Not only does it have a variation of the bowl of water on its head, one of the key features of a Kappa, its behaviour is just like that of a mythological Kappa, being a trickster/villain that lives in rivers and torments people. Pokemon Ruby tells us, Lombre is nocturnal. It will get active after dusk. It is also a mischief maker. When this Pokemon spots anglers, it tugs on their fishing lines from beneath the surface and enjoys their consternation. Pokemon Sapphire tells us, Lombre's entire body is covered by a slippery, slimy film. It feels horribly unpleasant to be touched by this Pokemon's hands. Lombre is often mistaken for a human child. And lastly, Pokemon Emerald tells us, in the evening, it takes great delight in popping out of rivers and startling people. It feeds on aquatic moss that grows on rocks in the riverbed. In the anime, Brock had a Lotad, which evolved into a Lombre. In that episode, the people of a small village held a superstition that the coming of Brock's Lombre heralded the return of water to their village. Lombre also has markings which look like the jacket of a mariachi performer, though more on that later. The name Lombre combines lotus and hombre, Spanish for man, or perhaps sombrero. Hasubrero, the Japanese name, combines hasu, lotus, and sombrero. Eventually, Brock's Lombre, like all Lombre exposed to a water stone, evolved into Ludicolo. Ludicolo is a big, goofy pineapple in a poncho and a big lily pad hat. It maintains the lily pad elements and Kappa inspirations, but leans hard into a Mexican Mariachi look. This mesh of Japanese religion and folklore with Mexican culture might seem unusual, but makes sense for a Pokemon game based on the Kyushu region of Japan, a region deeply associated with the relationship between Spain, Japan, and Mexico, where a variation on Mexican food has developed, and where Christian missionaries lived and tragically died for the cause. Don't get too bogged down in all that serious business though. Ludicolo is just here to dance and have a good time. Pokemon Ruby tells us, Ludicolo begins dancing as soon as it hears cheerful, festive music. This Pokemon is said to appear when it hears the singing of children on hiking outings. Pokemon Sapphire tells us, upon hearing an upbeat and cheerful rhythm, the cells in Ludicolo's body become very energetic and active. Even in battle, this Pokemon will exhibit an amazing amount of power. And Pokemon Emerald tells us, when it hears festive music, all the cells in its body become stimulated, and it begins moving in rhythm. It does not quail even when it faces a tough opponent. As a dancer, Ludicolo made the perfect partner for Mirror B, the disco-dancing villain of Pokemon Colosseum and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, well known for his extremely funky music. Ludicolo also has a small, though memorable, role in both the Detective Pikachu game and live-action movie, serving coffees and making ridiculous faces.
Another round, extra shot, black as night, thank you, sweetie.
As a competitive battler, Ludicolo had a long and storied career in the video game scene. Its two abilities let it make good use of rainy weather, either defensively with Rain Dish, or offensively with Swift Swim, with each variant having high and low points throughout the years. The name Ludicolo combines ludicrous and loco, Spanish for crazy. The Japanese name, Rupapa, combines rumba and kappa. I've always had a soft spot for the goofiness of these monsters, but seeing how they so successfully knot Japanese and Mexican culture, representing a strong and enduring cultural relationship, I can appreciate them as a genuinely fascinating little family of monsters. Music for Luke Loves Pokemon was composed by Jonathan Cromie. Artwork for the show is by Katie Groves. If you've enjoyed this podcast and want to help keep it online, please consider supporting at patreon.com/podcastio-podcastius. While you're there, why not check out the other podcasts me and my pals create? Monster Mash, our Monster Hunter podcast, is currently covering the monsters from Monster Hunter Rise, and in amongst those you might find some interesting yokai, just like the Kappa we talked about today. I also love it when listeners get in touch. Hit me up on Twitter or Facebook at LukeLovesPKMN. I want to hear why you love these monsters, whether it's a Pokemon we've already covered, or one that's coming up. Next up are Seedot and Talo, so please let me know your thoughts on those. I love Lotad, and remember, I love you too.